You ever get that feeling when you're digging into something kind of complex, like some science-y stuff, or maybe tech, engineering, math, and all of a sudden it's like charts and graphs and diagrams everywhere.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's like they're speaking a whole other language, right? Visuals, I mean, they're just everywhere, especially in those fields. Like, think about it.
It's true, from the simplest things, like a bar graph showing, I don't know, some survey results,
Mm.
to those crazy complicated circuit diagrams. It's visuals galore.
Absolutely. And, that actually brings us to what we're diving into today. We're going to tackle this question. When does learning with a bunch of different visuals actually help you learn better versus just seeing one?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? Like, is more always better? I mean, think about it. Maybe you're prepping for a presentation and you've got all this data to visualize.
Right, right. Or you're trying to wrap your head around some research paper and it's just overflowing with figures.
Exactly. Or maybe, you're like us and you're just curious about the best ways to learn, period. So that's what this deep dive is all about,
Yeah.
helping you cut through all that visual noise and really understand, deeply but also quickly the key takeaways.
That's the goal. So what we're going to do is unpack some of the research on this. And a lot of what we're talking about today comes from this really interesting study. It's called Conditions for the Effectiveness of Multiple Visual Representations in Enhancing STEM Learning.
Catchy title.
Yeah, right. But it's by Martina A. Rao. And it's a really good look at how we process visual information when we're trying to learn.
Cool. So bottom line,
Yeah.
we're trying to figure out if and when seeing something explained with like a graph and a diagram and a chart,
Line chart.
right, in a pie chart, if that actually helps it stick in your brain better than just seeing one of those things. Does variety really boost understanding?
That's what we're here to find out. And to get there, we kind of have to understand what Rao calls the representation dilemma, which is this basic challenge. It's basically that we're trying to learn from visuals that we don't actually fully understand yet. Like we're trying to learn from the thing we're still learning about.
Okay, yeah. So like, imagine you're trying to learn about fractions and someone shows you a pie chart. Makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Pie, fractions, pieces. But what if you don't actually get what a pie chart is?
right.
Like that, it represents a whole divided into parts.
Yeah.
Seeing those fractions in a pie chart isn't going to magically make you understand fractions.
Exactly. You need what Rao calls representational competencies. It's like the knowledge and skills to actually use those visuals properly, to actually get the information from them.
So basically, you need to understand how to read these different types of visuals. But
Yeah.
that takes mental energy, right?
Hmm.
It's not always just easy to figure out a new kind of graph or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's definitely work for your brain. It's cognitively demanding. So that brings us to a really important question. When do the benefits of seeing something in multiple ways? When do those benefits outweigh the cost of actually figuring out what all those visuals mean?
Right. Okay, so it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
And I guess there's actual like research and theory behind why multiple visuals might be helpful, not just a hunch, right? So what are some of those theories?
Well, there's this thing called multimedia learning theory, which basically says adding visuals to text is good for learning, but it doesn't really say how many visuals or what kind.
Okay, so it's not very specific.
Not really, no. Then there are these things called cognitive learning theories, which are all about the actual thinking processes going on, like how we learn by understanding concepts and how we make sense of what we see.
So it's not just about the visual entering your eye. It's about what your brain does with it and how it connects to the stuff you already know.
Exactly. And then there are sociocultural theories. And these are interesting because they basically point out that visuals aren't just some abstract learning tools. They're actually part of how experts in different fields talk to each other and even how they think.
Like a biologist looking at a cell diagram isn't just seeing shapes. They're seeing something that has a shared meaning in their field.
Totally. It's communication, but within that specific discipline. Okay, so now let's talk about the specific competencies that Rao talks about in her study and how they play into this whole single versus multiple visuals thing. So the first one is called visual understanding.
Okay, so break that down for us. Visual understanding. What is that exactly?
Basically, it's being able to connect a visual, any visual, to the concept it's supposed to represent. Like, if you see a bar graph, do you understand what that bar graph is telling you about the information?
Right, so if I'm looking at a new kind of chart, I need to figure out what that one chart is saying before I even start comparing it to other charts.
Exactly. You have to understand each one individually first. No matter how many visuals you're looking at, you have to get what each one is saying on its own. That's visual understanding, and it's crucial whether you have one visual or 100.
Okay, but here's where it gets interesting. Rao says that visual understanding is probably required when you're working with multiple visuals, whereas it might just be helpful with a single visual. Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure. Think of it this way. Let's say you're trying to understand a scatter plot, right? And you don't quite get it. Then someone shows you a correlation matrix and a regression line, all showing the same data. If you didn't get the scatter plot in the first place,
Seeing those extra visuals isn't going to help.
right, it might even make it worse, you know? It's like being given instructions in 3 different languages when you only know like 5 words of one of them.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. So more visuals don't automatically equal more understanding, especially if you're already lost on the first one.
And there's research that shows this. Like studies have shown that if you give people help understanding the individual visuals first, like maybe you give them prompts that ask them to explain what a graph is showing, then learning with multiple visuals becomes way more effective.
It's like you need that solid foundation, right?
Yeah.
You need to understand each piece before you can start putting the puzzle together. Okay, so that's visual understanding. What's the next competency?
The next one is connectional understanding. And this is where having multiple visuals can really shine. Because connectional understanding is about seeing how all those different visuals relate to each other.
Oh, okay. So it's not just about understanding a bar chart and a line graph separately. It's about seeing how they both represent the same data, but maybe show different aspects of it.
Exactly. So for example, you see how a spike on a line graph matches up with the tallest bar on a bar chart that shows the same data over time. And this competency only really matters when you have multiple visuals, right? It's about understanding the connections between them.
And I'm guessing this is where the real learning happens, right? When you can start to see those connections between different representations, like you're getting different angles on the same idea.
Exactly. But just like with visual understanding, you usually need some help to make those connections. People don't always see them automatically. So things like prompts that encourage people to compare and contrast the visuals, to explain how they're showing the same information in different ways.
Those are really helpful. Okay, so we've got understanding each visual and then understanding how they connect. What else do we need?
Well, then we have visual fluency. And this is about being able to understand a visual quickly and easily without really having to think about it too hard.
Okay, so it's like
Okay.
when you're a good driver, you don't have to think about each step of driving. You just do it. So with visuals, it's like you can just look at a graph and immediately get the main idea without getting bogged down in all the little details.
Exactly. And this is important for learning with any visual
Hmm.
because it frees up your brain power to focus on the actual information. But it might be even more important with multiple visuals because you're processing more visual information overall.
Right, because if you're spending all your energy just trying to figure out what each chart means,
Yeah.
you don't have any energy left to actually understand the bigger picture or
That-
to make those connections between the different charts.
Right. So fluency with individual visuals frees up your brain to do the deeper thinking. And in our case, to make those connections between the representations. And how do we build this fluency? Well, mostly just practice. The more you see and work with different visuals, the better you get at reading them.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got understanding, connecting, and being fluent with each one. What's next?
The next one is connectional fluency. This is the ability to quickly and easily translate between different visuals that are showing the same information.
So it's not just seeing that they're related, it's being able to switch back and forth between them easily. Like you can see a data set in a table and then instantly picture it as a histogram.
Exactly. And this is something that only really comes up when you're learning with multiple visuals, obviously. And just like visual fluency, being able to do this quickly makes it easier to process the information and see the concept from different angles. And again, you can help people build this fluency by giving them activities that make them practice going from one type of visual to another.
Okay, cool. So we're really building up a toolkit here, right? We need to understand each visual, see how they relate, be fluent in reading each one, and be able to translate between them. Anything else?
Yep, one more. This one is called meta-representational competencies. And it's a bit more abstract. It's about knowing when and why to use a certain type of visual. Like knowing that a line graph is good for showing a trend over time, while a pie chart is better for showing proportions.
Right. So it's not just about understanding the visual someone gives you. It's about knowing how to choose the right visual for the job. Like if I want to explain something at a presentation, I need to know which type of chart is going to be the most effective.
Exactly. And this becomes more important when you have multiple visuals to choose from, obviously, because now you have more options. So understanding the strengths and weaknesses of different visuals becomes really crucial. And just like with the other competencies, giving people guidance on this can really help them learn better when they're using multiple visuals.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot that goes into effectively learning with multiple visuals. You have to be able to do all these things, understand them, connect them, be fluent with them, translate between them, and even know when to use which one. So let's go back to the big question. When is it actually worth all this effort? Like, when do the benefits of using multiple visuals outweigh the costs?
Right. Good question. And Rao talks about a couple of important factors to consider. One is something called information overlap. Basically, multiple visuals are most effective when each one gives you some new information, but they also overlap enough that you can make those connections we were talking about.
So if I'm looking at, say, 3 charts, and they're all about completely different things, that's not really helpful.
And it's also not helpful if they're all showing the exact same thing in slightly different ways.
Exactly. You need that sweet spot. Each visual should give you a slightly different angle, but there should still be enough common ground that your brain can put them together.
Okay, so how much overlap is too much? Like, when does it stop being helpful and just become redundant?
That's a good question. And I think it depends on whether the overlap is actually helping you understand something important or if it's just repeating the same point without adding any new nuance.
Got it. So what's the other factor?
The other factor is those sociocultural conventions we talked about earlier. Remember how we said visuals are part of how experts in different fields communicate?
Yeah.
Well, that means the effectiveness of multiple visuals also depends on how they're actually used in that field. Like, if you're trying to understand economics, you need to be able to read time series graphs, scatter plots, tables.
Because those are the tools economists use.
Exactly. So learning to use those visuals is part of becoming an expert in economics. It's like learning the language of the field.
Okay, that makes sense. So different fields have different visual languages.
Yeah.
And you have to learn those languages if you want to really understand what's going on. So let's bring it all home. What's the key takeaway for our listener? Like, if they're trying to make sense of some report or learn about a new topic, what should they keep in mind?
I think the main point is that more visuals isn't always better. Just seeing more stuff doesn't automatically make you learn better. It really depends on a few things.
Okay, like what?
Well, first, can you actually understand each visual on its own? Like, if you see a new type of chart, do you know what it's telling you?
Right, you have to start with that basic understanding.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then, can you connect the different visuals? Can you see how they're showing the same information, but in different ways?
Okay, that's the connectional understanding we talked about.
Right. And then, is each visual actually adding something new? Or are they just repeating the same thing over and over?
So they should be complementary, not redundant.
Right. And finally, if you're learning about a specific field, are you using the same kinds of visuals that the experts in that field use?
So you're learning their visual language.
Exactly. So next time you're faced with a ton of visuals, remember, it's not about the quantity. It's about how you engage with them.
It's about the quality of your engagement.
I like that. Okay, so to wrap up this deep dive, we've learned that using multiple visuals can be a really powerful way to learn. You can see things from different angles, and that helps you build a deeper, more flexible understanding.
But it's not passive. You have to actively work at it. You have to develop those competencies we talked about.
Yeah.
You have to understand each visual, connect them, and become fluent in using them. And don't get overwhelmed if you see a bunch of complex visuals. Just remember to take it slow. Understand each one individually, and then start to build those connections between them. It's like a puzzle, right?
It is. And speaking of puzzles, here's something to think about. Think about the stuff you shared with us. Did those sources use visuals effectively? Were the connections between them clear? And what competencies could you work on to get even more out of those kinds of materials in the future?
That's a good question to ponder. I like it. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Learning is a journey, right? And understanding how we learn visually is a huge part of that.
Absolutely.
So until next time, keep learning.